Welcome to the Phil and H Travel Podcast, Is It Worth It?
Yeah, I'm really excited to get into this one today.
So, for today's deep dive, we are doing a full audit of Pangkor Island. It's this small Malaysian island just off the Perak coast.
Right, a really fascinating spot in the current travel landscape.
Exactly. And if you're planning a trip and want the honest, is it worth it verdict before you book, follow the show on Spotify or Apple.
Because honestly, there is a lot to unpack with this one.
Oh, for sure. I mean, picture this scenario for a second. You have just endured like a super bumpy, heavily air-conditioned 5-hour bus ride down the spine of peninsular Malaysia.
The classic freezer bus experience.
Yeah, literally freezing. And then you've stood in this sweltering concrete ferry terminal for over an hour, just shoulder to shoulder with thousands of other sweating travelers.
Sweating being the operative word there.
Exactly. So you finally take this 40-minute boat ride, you drag your suitcase into the back of a van, and you pull up to your highly anticipated island beach resort. And then you look out at the ocean and realize the water is just completely gone.
Right, the tide took it all the way out.
Yeah, all that is left is this massive expanse of wet, exposed mud.
Welcome to the reality of cheap island hunting.
Exactly. We are looking really closely at the core tension of Pangkor today, because it's a place that aggressively markets itself as, a cheap tropical escape.
And if we set the baseline for the 2026 to 2027 travel landscape, the raw numbers really do back up the cheap part of that marketing.
They really do. I mean, you are looking at a $4.90 USD return ferry ticket.
Which is basically unheard of.
Right. And you can score a very decent room midweek for between $20 and $30 a night.
Plus, incredible freshly caught seafood meals that are going to cost you under $5.
But there's a massive catch regarding the escape part of that promise, isn't there?
Yeah, there really is. And it's a catch that fundamentally alters the nature of the entire trip.
That's what.
Well, the biggest misconception travelers have when they hear tropical island is they just assume there's this seamless infrastructure designed specifically to parachute them onto a sun lounger.
Like a direct flight straight to the beach.
Exactly. But Pangkor doesn't have a scheduled flight. It requires this grueling 4 to 6 hour overland burn from Kuala Lumpur before you even see the coast.
Wow, okay, so it's a trek.
It's a huge trek, and the escape factor is almost entirely dependent on your timing. So we're looking at a destination that works beautifully for budget travelers, for laid-back families, and for slow-paced digital nomads.
Right.
But we have to draw a hard line immediately regarding who this is not for.
Let me guess. It's probably not for the traveler expecting, a Maldives-style overwater bungalow with a glass floor looking down into crystal-clear turquoise water.
Yeah, definitely not. It is not for anyone expecting Maldives-grade water. It's not for anyone looking for, Ibiza-style nightlife. And it is certainly not for anyone who expects a zero-friction weekend.
Which kind of brings us to the first thing I really want to challenge about the way this island is sold.
Oh, the duty-free thing.
Yeah. You drive down the highway in Malaysia, or you look at the tourism boards, and the phrase duty-free is plastered everywhere.
Right, they designated Pangkor as a duty-free zone decades ago.
And they heavily re-emphasized it in the early 2020s, right, to kind of stimulate the local economy post-pandemic.
They did, yeah.
Now, to the average person, duty-free sounds like this magic wand that makes your entire vacation cheap. But this is essentially a contrarian hook, isn't it? It's just a distraction.
It is a brilliant marketing distraction.
Why is that?
To understand why, you really have to look at the mechanics of what a duty-free designation actually covers in a Malaysian context.
Okay, break that down for me.
It does not mean your hotel room is suddenly half price. It does not mean your restaurant meal is tax exempt.
Right.
The duty-free status on Pangkor specifically applies to a very narrow basket of goods. We're talking alcohol, tobacco, chocolate, cosmetics, and perfume.
So if I'm traveling with my family, let's say I've got 2 kids, and we're just trying to have a nice week at the beach, this duty-free label does absolutely nothing for my core expenses.
Literally nothing.
Wow.
I mean, if you're going there purely to stock up on a carton of duty-free chocolate and some imported perfume, then sure, it's a perk. But let's look at the actual math.
Let's do it.
If you want to buy a case of 24 beers from a duty-free shop to take back to your guest house balcony, it's going to run you somewhere between 60 and 80 Malaysian ringgit.
which translates to what in US dollars?
Roughly $15 to $20 USD.
Okay, that's really cheap for a whole case.
It is. And if you were to buy that exact same case on the mainland, it would cost you 100 to 120 ringgit, so about $25 to $29.
Gotcha.
And like a liter of imported whiskey on the island is going to sit between 20 and 29 USD compared to $37 to $49 on the mainland.
Okay, so saving $10 on a case of beer or $20 on a bottle of whiskey is nice, but it's not exactly subsidizing a 5-day vacation.
No, not at all.
You aren't saving hundreds of dollars unless you are consuming a frankly alarming amount of whiskey on the beach.
Exactly. Which is why we have to look at the macro context. Like, why audit Pangkor right now at this specific crossroads in 2026 and 2027?
Right, why the urgency?
Because it is one of the very last genuinely cheap beach islands left within a drivable distance from Kuala Lumpur.
Okay.
But access is worsening. I mean, the island relies completely on an aging ferry system, and Malaysia's broader tax creep is really starting to nibble at that perceived value.
You're talking about the expanded sales and service tax, right? Plus that extra tourism tax.
Yes, exactly. The Malaysian government has expanded its service tax regime, which just means higher baseline costs for the businesses operating on the island.
And they pass that on to the tourists.
Always. Additionally, there is a flat 10 ringgit, so about $2.45 USD per night tourism tax applied to all foreign hotel guests.
Right. So while the marketing still screams duty-free, the structural costs of just existing as a tourist on the island are quietly creeping up.
Yeah, it's this weird balancing act.
But even with that tax creep, the headline anchor costs are still remarkably low by global standards. Let's cement those numbers for the listener, just to be clear.
Yeah, let's recap them.
So a return ferry ticket from Lumut is $4.90 USD. You can secure a very basic budget room for around $20 USD a night, or upgrade to a more comfortable room for about $29.
Mm-hmm.
A proper sit-down seafood dish is about $4.40, and you can hire a van for a 2-hour guided tour of the entire island for $27.
And those anchor costs are the real draw, not the duty-free chocolate.
Right, exactly.
But before we get into the weeds of how to spend that money, we really need to establish the immediate skip-if signals, the absolute deal breakers.
Okay, lay them on me.
Skip Pangkor entirely if your mental image of an island vacation requires Instagram-perfect turquoise water.
Really? Why? What is actually happening with the water there?
It all comes down to geography and global economics. Pangkor sits in the Strait of Malacca. This is not the open, deep blue Pacific. The Strait of Malacca is a relatively shallow, geographically narrow funnel sitting between the west coast of Malaysia and the massive Indonesian island of Sumatra.
Ah, right.
And it is one of the busiest commercial shipping lanes on the planet.
Oh, wow, so it's constantly churning.
Exactly. You have massive cargo ships constantly churning the water, combined with muddy seabeds and outflow from major mainland rivers. The sediment simply never settles.
So what does it look like?
So the water is this hazy, opaque green. I mean, it is perfectly safe to swim in, but it will never, ever look like a postcard from Bora Bora.
That is the kind of geographical reality that a tourism board will just never put on a brochure.
Definitely not.
So what is the second deal breaker?
The sand at Pasir Bogak, which is the island's main family beach, narrows severely at high tide. The beach essentially vanishes.
Like we mentioned at the top of the show.
Yes. If you book a hotel there expecting to lounge on a massive expanse of white sand all afternoon and you don't check the lunar tide charts, you are going to be staring at a seawall.
That's rough.
But the ultimate deal breaker, the one that should cause you to cancel your plans immediately, is if your only available window to travel happens to fall on a Malaysian public holiday.
Okay, let's follow that thread, because if public holidays are the ultimate skip-if signal, it completely dictates when you should plan this trip. We need to talk about the weather and the crowds.
Let's start with the weather matrix, because the West Coast operates differently than the famous East Coast islands in Malaysia.
Okay, so when is the absolute best time to go?
The absolute best months to visit Pangkor are December, January, and February. This is the drier, calmer stretch.
Right.
The ferry crossings are smooth, and assuming you dodge the specific week of Chinese New Year, the guest houses are cheap.
So winter in the Northern Hemisphere is basically the prime window.
Exactly.
What if I can only get time off in the summer, though?
June, July, and August represent a secondary workable window. It will be noticeably hotter and far more humid, but you can still have a great trip.
Okay, that's doable. So what's the worst time?
The period you really want to avoid is roughly September through December. This is the intermonsoon and early wet season.
So what does a wet season actually look like on a small island? Is it just like a light drizzle, or are we talking about being completely trapped in a room?
The rain becomes highly unpredictable. The sea gets rough, which means snorkeling trips and boat tours frequently get canceled for safety reasons.
That makes sense.
It rarely rains continuously from dawn to dusk, but you get these incredibly heavy, violent afternoon thunderstorms that can just dump inches of water in an hour.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it basically wipes out your ability to plan a reliable beach day.
And sitting in a $20 room with a leaky roof while a wall of water obliterates your afternoon is definitely not a vacation.
Bad at all.
But here's the fascinating thing about Pangkor. The crowd patterns actually dictate your experience far more than the barometric pressure.
Yes, absolutely.
Because this isn't a Caribbean island that empties out during the off-season. Pangkor runs entirely on a domestic crowd economy.
This is the single most important mechanism to understand about the island. Pangkor is overwhelmingly built for and sustained by Malaysians.
Right.
It is driven by local tourists from Ipoh, which is a major city just an hour away, by a $2 USD bus, as well as people driving up from Kuala Lumpur and the wider Perak state.
So it's basically a local getaway.
Exactly. And because of this, the island doesn't have a typical summer peak and winter low. It operates on a violent weekday versus weekend split.
Okay, let's use an analogy here. It's almost like the island is a lung, right?
Yeah.
From Monday to Thursday, the island is exhaled. It's empty. The beaches are quiet. The guest house owners are practically begging to negotiate room rates, and you can flag down a taxi instantly.
Spot on.
But the second the clock strikes 5 p.m. on a Friday in Kuala Lumpur or Ipoh, the highway arteries pump thousands of people straight to the coast. The island inflates to 150% capacity in a matter of hours.
That is exactly how it functions. And from Friday afternoon through Sunday, and especially during any Malaysian school holiday, Chinese New Year, or Hari Raya, the financial math we talked about simply blows up.
It just goes out the window.
Entirely. Room rates instantly jump 30 to 50%.
Wow.
The popular guest houses sell out completely. The famous pink taxi vans stop offering discounts because demand outstrips supply.
And getting there must be a nightmare.
Oh, the ferry terminal at Lumut develops these massive snaking queues where you can lose an hour or more just standing in the ambient heat waiting for a boat.
Okay, so if that lung is fully inflated with weekend crowds, where does everyone actually go once they get on the island? Let's map out the geography of these crowds.
Sure. So the island is really segmented by traveler type. Let's start with Teluk Nipah on the west coast.
Yeah.
This is the classic backpacker and youth-oriented strip. It is where you find the cafes, the cheap banana pancake stalls, and the lowest-priced beds. And because it serves the budget demographic, it is the very first place to fill up on a Friday night, and it becomes incredibly noisy.
Okay, so that's the energetic, loud zone.
Yeah.
Where do you go if you just want to swim in peace?
Just north of Teluk Nipah is Coral Bay. Objectively, this is the prettiest swimmable beach on the island. It has the finest sand and the clearest water you'll find here.
Nice.
It sits about 7 kilometers from the main jetty, which will cost you a $6 USD taxi fare. But because it is the most aesthetically pleasing spot, it acts as a magnet for day trippers.
So it gets packed.
Oh yeah. On a long weekend, Coral Bay is packed shoulder to shoulder with picnicking families.
Now, what about Pasir Bogak?
Pasir Bogak is the family and resort strip. It is highly developed and sits only 2 kilometers from the main jetty, making it a super easy $3 USD taxi hop.
That's super convenient.
It is, and this is where you find the larger hotels that can accommodate domestic tour groups.
Right, and what's left?
Finally, you have the East Coast, which is dominated by working fishing villages like Singai Penang Kesel and cultural sites like the Fulin Kong and Kaliaman temples.
Do tourists go over there much?
The East Coast stays busy, but with commercial fishing traffic and local logistics rather than sunbathing tourists.
Okay, so if I'm looking at this map, how do I tailor my strategy? Let's say I'm a solo traveler with totally flexible dates.
If you are solo or couple with flexibility, you must go midweek, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. That is when you experience the Pangkor they advertise. Cheap, calm, unhurried.
But what if I'm a family? What if my kids are in school and I am completely locked into traveling on a weekend or a public holiday?
Then you must accept reality. You will pay the crowd premium.
There's just no way around it.
None. You need to book your accommodation at least 1 to 2 weeks in advance. And crucially, you must plan your overland travel so that you arrive at the Lumut jetty early in the morning.
Okay, early is key.
Yes. If you try to catch a ferry at 3:00 p.m. on a Friday before a long weekend, you are going to be miserable.
And what's the advice for digital nomads?
Nomads need to live on the weekday rhythm. Use Monday to Thursday to enjoy the island. And when Friday hits, either hunker down in your room and work, or accept that the cafes are going to be loud and crowded.
You know, the ultimate cautionary tale is the traveler who thinks they can just wing it.
Oh, absolutely.
They show up on a Saturday afternoon during a school holiday with no booking, assuming they can just stroll along the beach and haggle for a charming bungalow.
What happens?
They end up dragging a roller suitcase down a cracked shoulder in 90-degree heat, discovering that every single room with a working fan is sold out.
Which perfectly illustrates why the actual experience of arriving is so critical. I mean, we've talked about the timing, but what happens when you physically try to get there?
Let's break down the overland reality. It is highly functional, but it is not romantic. The real friction of visiting Pangkor isn't the ferry ride.
No, not at all.
The friction is that 5-hour bus ride from KL before you even smell salt water. You are dealing with highway traffic, rest stops, and cramped seats. By the time you get to the coast, you're exhausted.
You really are. And almost all travelers funnel through Lumut, a mainland ferry town in Perak. You can reach it by driving or by taking one of those long-distance buses you mentioned.
Right.
And the main passenger ferries run from the Lumut jetty directly to Pangkor town.
How does that crossing actually work? Like, are we talking about a luxury catamaran here?
Absolutely not. These are very basic, enclosed passenger boats.
Okay.
The crossing from Lumut takes 30 to 40 minutes. They run every 30 to 60 minutes from 7:00 a.m. to roughly 7:00 p.m.
And the price is still cheap.
The ticket price is brilliant 20 ringgit or $4.90 USD for a return trip, but there are no assigned seats.
Ah, so it's a free-for-all.
Yeah, you buy a ticket, you wait in the terminal, and when the gates open, there is often a bit of a jostle to get a good spot. In the dry season, it's a calm ride. In the wet season, it can get quite bumpy.
Wait, I've also seen something called Marina Island Jetty on the map. Is that better?
Marina Island Jetty is the alternative jumping off point. The boat ride from there is much shorter, only 10 to 20 minutes, and it costs the exact same $4.90 USD round trip.
That sounds great. Why doesn't everyone use that?
Well, it is faster on the water, but the terminal itself is a bit isolated and slightly less convenient if you are arriving on a public bus from KL, which usually terminates right at Lumut.
Okay, so you endure the bus, you survive the jetty jostle, and you step off the boat at Pangkor town. Now you need to get to your bed. This is where you encounter the island's most iconic feature, the pink taxi vans.
Yes, the pink vans.
I want to talk about these because they operate on a fascinating economic model. There are no metered taxis here. You can't pull out your phone and book a Grab or an Uber. Why is that?
Because the island community fiercely protects its local microeconomy. The pink van drivers operate almost like a hyper-localized cooperative. Yeah, by keeping ride-sharing apps off the island and fixing the prices on a massive public board at the jetty, they prevent outside tech companies from undercutting them.
I mean, it prevents algorithmic price gouging, but it also prevents discounting.
Precisely. It guarantees a living wage for the local drivers in an economy that is highly seasonal and weekend dependent. The fares are posted, and they are non-negotiable.
I honestly appreciate that as a traveler. It just completely removes the exhaustion of haggling when you just want to get to your room. So what are the specific fares?
From the jetty to Pasir Bogak is 12 ringgit, or $2.94 USD.
Yeah.
If you are going further up the coast to Coral Bay or Teluk Nipah, it is 25 ringgit, or $6.12 USD.
Still very cheap.
A short hop to the southern villages is 10 ringgit, or $2.45 USD. And if you want to hire a driver for a full 2-hour guided tour of the island, that is fixed at 110 ringgit, or $26.93 USD.
So you grab your pink van, and as you drive away from the jetty, the initial vibe check hits you. You see the ultra-cheap food stalls, you see the fishing boats, and providing you arrived on a Tuesday morning, this wonderfully slow pace washes over you.
Providing it's Tuesday, yes.
Right. But if you arrive at 4 p.m. on a Friday, you aren't going to feel a slow pace. You are going to feel the stress of a traffic jam on a one-lane road.
Exactly. Assuming you timed it right, that van is dropping you off at your accommodation. And the lodging landscape on Pangkor splits very cleanly based on what you are willing to pay and what zone you choose.
Let's audit those zones. If I'm a backpacker on a strict budget, I am heading straight to Teluk Nipah. You mentioned I can get a simple guest house or a beach chalet for around 80 ringgit, which is $20 USD midweek.
Right.
But let's be totally honest about what $20 buys in 2026. Am I getting a pristine room with luxury linens?
You are getting 4 walls, a bed, and either a ceiling fan or very basic, heavily used air conditioning. You are paying for the location.
So it's pretty bare bones.
Very. You will be within a 2-minute walk to the beach and the cheap cafes. The structural trade-off for that $20 price tag is thin walls. You will hear your neighbors and you will hear the weekend noise from the street.
And I have to ask the ultimate backpacker survival question. At $20 a night, am I getting a hot shower?
You absolutely must double-check the listing before you book. At the $20 tier on this specific island, reliable hot water is often considered a luxury add-on, not a baseline guarantee.
Good to know. Okay, what if I'm traveling with a partner and we want something slightly better? The mid-range couple.
Then you look at the quieter ends of Pasir Bogak or the higher-end boutique spots in Teluk Nipah. A comfortable room, meaning reliable, modern AC, a clean private bathroom with guaranteed hot water, and perhaps a small communal pool starts at around 120 ringgit or $29 USD midweek.
That's a great jump in quality for just $9 more.
It is. Realistically, though, you will be shopping in the $35 to $70 USD band to get something quite nice.
Honestly, a private beachside room with a pool for $50 a night is an absurdly good deal globally.
It is, but expectations still need to be managed. Mid-range here is modest. Do not expect highly polished international resort standards. It will be clean, functional, and friendly, but it is not a 5-star finish.
Now, what about the family? Pasir Bogak is the family hub because it's only a $3 USD taxi ride from the jetty. You can get a family room or a small chalet for $50 to $100 USD a night. But you mentioned a massive caveat earlier about the beach disappearing.
This is the crucial tip for families. Because the sand at Pasir Bogak is essentially a tidal flat that narrows sharply at high tide, there will be hours during the day when your kids simply cannot play on the beach.
So they're just stuck in the room.
Not if you plan right. Therefore, booking a hotel with a swimming pool is absolutely mandatory for a family. You need a backup body of water for the kids when the ocean is inaccessible.
Yeah, you definitely do not want to be the parent explaining to a toddler that the ocean is closed for the afternoon.
That never goes well.
Finally, we have to address the luxury outlier. Because when some international travelers hear the name Pangkor, they are actually picturing something that isn't really on the island at all.
They're picturing the Pangkor Laut resort. We have to put a massive asterisk next to this property.
Why is that?
Pangkor Laut is a genuine world-class luxury resort featuring stunning overwater villas and hillside estates. But it sits on its own separate private island off the coast of Pangkor proper.
So it's a completely isolated bubble.
Entirely. The rates there start around $200 USD a night just for the baseline rooms and climb into the thousands.
Wow.
The trade-off is that you are completely cut off from the scruffy charm and cheapness of Pangkor proper. You cannot just walk out of your luxury villa and buy a $4 plate of noodles from a street hawker. You are captive to resort pricing for your food and drinks.
So we had a completely different holiday and a completely different financial reality.
Very much so.
So to wrap up the accommodation audit, factor in the weekend surge pricing, add the $2.45 USD per night foreign tourism tax to your budget, and if you're going cheap, check the fine print on the hot water.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Now let's talk about the single best reason to visit this island. Because Pasir Bogak and Pangkor Town are so close to the main ferry jetties, they are also where the commercial fishing boats offload their catch, which dictates the entire food economy of the island.
Oh, the food is incredible. Pangkor is fundamentally a working fishing community first and a tourist destination second.
Right.
Because the supply chain is literally just a boat pulling up to a dock a few hundred yards from the restaurants, the seafood is both incredibly fresh and genuinely inexpensive.
Where are the specific zones to tap into this? Like, where should I eat?
You have 3 distinct culinary zones. In Teluk Nipah, you have hawker stalls catering to the backpackers with cheap, varied street food.
Okay.
Along Pasir Bogak, you have beachfront warongs. These are small, family-owned stalls serving grilled fish.
Sounds amazing.
And near Pangkor Town and the fishing village of Sungai Pinang Castle on the east coast, you have large, multi-generational Chinese seafood restaurants.
Walk me through the menu math, because for a traveler arriving from North America or Europe, these numbers almost look like typos.
They really do. A simple, filling meal of fried rice or noodles at a hawker stall will cost about 7 ringgit, which is $1.71 USD.
Less than $2.
Yeah. And if you sit down at a Chinese restaurant and order a proper, fresh seafood dish, maybe steamed fish or butter prawns, that anchors around 18 ringgit or $4.41 USD.
Unbelievable.
A local iced tea or coffee is about 4 ringgit or 98 cents.
What if you want Western food? Like if you just crave a standard hotel breakfast?
If you order a hotel breakfast or go to a cafe catering to Westerners, you'll pay a premium roughly 30 ringgit or $7.34 USD.
Still pretty cheap, but definitely a huge markup locally.
But the most staggering metric to understand the local economy is the raw ingredient cost. If you walk into the local wet market, fresh fish sells for roughly 3.50 to 9 ringgit a kilo.
Wait, how much is that in dollars?
That is 86 cents to $2.20 USD for a kilogram of fish pulled out of the ocean that morning.
That is the ultimate proof that you are eating at the source. But this brings us to a really funny economic contradiction on the island. We call it the alcohol paradox.
Yes, the paradox.
We established earlier that a case of 24 duty-free beers is $15 to $20 USD. But if I go to one of those beachfront warongs and order a single cold beer with my $4.41 plate of prawns, the beer's going to cost me over $3 USD. Why am I paying mainland prices for beer on a duty-free island?
Because you are crossing the line between the retail economy and the service economy.
Right.
Malaysia is a Muslim-majority country with complex regulations and taxes surrounding alcohol consumption. The duty-free status lowers the retail takeaway price at specific designated shops.
Okay, so that's the retail side.
Exactly. But the moment a cafe or a restaurant stocks that beer in a fridge, serves it to you at a table, and it washes your glass, their markup reflects the overarching cost of doing business and holding a liquor license.
That makes total sense.
So yes, your single beer at dinner will frequently cost as much as your entire meal.
Which means the smart financial move is self-catering your drinks. Buy your beer at the duty-free shop at the jetty, put it in your guest house fridge, and drink it on your balcony.
Always the best move.
Speaking of self-catering, what do we need to know about groceries and island etiquette?
There are plenty of small provision shops and mini markets for basic snacks and water. As for etiquette, tipping is generally not expected in Malaysia.
Okay, good to know.
If you have a great meal, rounding up the bill or leaving a few small notes is appreciated, but you do not need to calculate a strict 20%.
And what about the dress code?
Mm-hmm.
It's a beach destination, but as you mentioned, it operates within a conservative cultural framework.
Modest dress away from the beach is a requirement of respect. When you are physically on the sand, standard swimwear is completely fine. But the moment you cross the road to walk into the village, enter a mini market, or visit the temples, you need to throw on a t-shirt and shorts or a sarong. Beachwear stays strictly on the beach.
Got it.
Also, regarding dietary restrictions, vegans and vegetarians will be able to find Indian and Chinese vegetable dishes, but you must expect seafood and shrimp paste to heavily dominate the local cuisine.
Okay, we have priced out the bed, the ferry, the pink vans, and the food. It is time to run the math on the full daily burn rate. Let's start with our backpacker. You claim a backpacker can survive on $30 to $50 a day here. Are we talking about actually enjoying the island or just surviving on instant noodles?
No, it is a highly comfortable budget. At $40 to $50 USD a day, you are spending $20 on a private guest house bed, $12 and $15 to eat 3 actual cooked meals at hawker stalls, $3 to $6 on shared pink van transport, maybe $7 to rent a kayak for an hour, plus a $5 buffer.
That sounds like a really solid day.
It is, and if you go midweek, stay in Teluk Nipah so you can walk everywhere,
Right.
and skip alcohol, you can easily shave that down to $30 a day.
$30 a day for a private room and fresh food on a tropical island. That is why it remains on the backpacker circuit.
Exactly.
Let's scale up. The mid-range traveler.
Calculating per person, a mid-range traveler is looking at $80 to $110 USD a day.
Okay, how does that break down?
That covers $25 to $35 for your half of a very comfortable air-conditioned room. You allocate $20 to $30 for proper sit-down seafood dinners and a hotel breakfast. You spend $10 to $15 amortizing taxi fares and taking a shared island tour, $15 to $25 for a boat trip, and you keep a $10 buffer.
And for a family of 4, like 2 adults, 2 kids,
Budget $200 to $260 USD a day for the entire family.
that's pretty reasonable.
It is. That breaks down to $70 to $100 for a large family room with a pool, $50 to $70 to feed everyone, $25 to $35 for van transport, $30 to $40 for activities, and a $20 buffer.
So a weekend trip is what, like $500?
Yeah, a full 3-day trip, totally excluding your international flights, lands between $500 and $750 USD.
And the luxury tier at Pangkor Laut.
If you cross over to the private island, you budget $400 to $700 plus USD per day. That's a $200 plus villa and $80 to $150 per person per day just to eat at their exclusive restaurants.
That is a totally different stratosphere.
Yeah.
Now, what about the digital nomads, the people who want to stay for a month?
A monthly stay is quietly one of the strongest slow travel values in Southeast Asia. You are looking at $1,200 to $1,700 USD for the entire month.
Oh, that's low.
You can negotiate. The budget overruns stem from four main behaviors. First, ignoring the alcohol paradox and drinking heavily at cafes instead of buying duty-free.
Makes sense.
Second, overusing the pink taxis to constantly hop between distant beaches rather than picking one zone and walking. Third, getting caught by the 30 to 50% weekend room premium because you didn't book ahead.
The weekend surge is brutal.
And fourth, the temptation to book an expensive private boat day trip out to the waters around the Pangkor Laut resort.
Those are the sneaky financial leaks. But to keep that daily burn rate in the green, you also have to deliberately sidestep the island's three biggest logistical traps. Let's name them.
All right.
Trap 1, the airport illusion. I love bringing this up because it is purely a map reading error.
It's so common.
You pull up Google Maps, you zoom in on the island, and right there, plain as day, it says Pangkor Airport. And a reasonable traveler thinks, fantastic, I'll just book a quick 30-minute puddle jumper flight from KL and skip the bus.
Google Maps is telling the truth about the existence of the tarmac, but it is lying about your ability to buy a ticket.
Wait, there are no flights.
There are no reliable scheduled passenger flights to Pangkor Airport in the 2026-27 landscape. Years ago, there used to be small turboprop links from Subang Airport, but those are gone. You must plan your itinerary on the absolute certainty that you cannot fly there.
So if you fall for the airport illusion, you waste half a day scrambling to figure out how to get to the bus terminal.
Exactly. You have to accept the reality of the 4 to 6 hour overland bus journey from KL to Lumut, which costs around $11 to $13 USD. If you are trying to connect immediately from an exhausting international arrival at Kuala Lumpur International Airport directly to the island, this overland haul is a massive, exhausting trap.
And trap 2.
Trap 2 is the weekend surge, which we've covered, but the specific trap is the arrogant belief that you can just wing it. The traveler who thinks, I'm a seasoned backpacker, I'll just show up and find a deal.
The penalty for winging it on a Friday afternoon is brutal.
You lose $20 to $40 USD a night to surge pricing for a room you don't even like. You spend your first afternoon walking aimlessly in the heat trying to find a vacancy, and you lose an hour standing in the Lumut jetty queue.
So what's the fix?
The fix is boring but necessary. Book your room and your return ferry ticket 2 weeks in advance.
Let's talk about trap 3, the beach access and tide trap. This is where geographical ignorance really hurts.
Not all coastlines on Pangkor are created equal. If you just sort accommodation by lowest price and book a room in a random zone thinking an island is an island, you fall into the trap.
Because you're far from the water.
Exactly. You might find yourself paying those $6 USD pink van fares twice a day just to reach a beach where you can safely swim. That adds $12 to $24 USD a day to your budget instantly.
Or, as we mentioned, you march down to Pasir Bogak for a beautiful sunset swim, and you realize the sand has been swallowed by the high tide.
Or you read an outdated travel blog about the quote-unquote secret untouched Cicada Beach, and you decide to trek there.
What's wrong with Cicada Beach?
What the blog doesn't tell you is that it requires an 800-meter walk through dense, humid forest with incredibly heavy mosquito loads, only to reach a beach that might be covered in driftwood. You have to match your accommodation zone to your daily priorities, and you must look at the local tide charts.
It all comes down to due diligence. Now, let's pivot slightly from financial and logistical risks to actual physical risks, because safety shapes the entire emotional experience of a trip.
The baseline fact is that Pangkor is a fundamentally low-risk destination, but we have to separate everyday environmental hazards from criminal threats.
When people go to Southeast Asia, they often worry about being pickpocketed or having their bag snatched by a guy on a scooter. Is that a reality here?
Petty crime is absolutely minimal, and violent crime against tourists is exceptionally rare. The island community is small, and everyone knows everyone.
That's reassuring.
Furthermore, because of those fixed-price pink mans, the typical tourist taximeter scams that plague major cities are virtually non-existent here. You just need to use standard common sense. Lock your guest house door and don't leave your smartphone sitting alone on a beach towel while you swim.
So if crime isn't the issue, what is actually putting travelers in the hospital?
Environmental and mechanical hazards. First, the sea currents and heavy boat traffic off the busier beaches. You have to be situationally aware in the water. But by far, the biggest statistical risk is tourists renting motorbikes.
Ah, the classic island mistake. Someone who has never driven a scooter in their life decides today is the day.
Exactly. You can rent a motorbike on Pangkor for 35 to 50 ringgit a day, about $8.57 to $12.24 USD. And every single week, tourists with zero riding experience rent these bikes, put on flip-flops, leave the helmet unbuckled, and try to navigate these very narrow, steep, winding island roads.
Sounds like a recipe for disaster.
It inevitably leads to crashes and severe road rash. That is the highest physical risk on the island.
What about safety for solo female travelers? It's a crucial demographic.
Pangkor is generally very comfortable and safe for solo women. The key is understanding the cultural context we discussed earlier. Modest off-beach dress is essential to respect local norms and to avoid unwanted attention.
Are there any specific areas or times to avoid?
The island gets very quiet after dark. Teluk Nipah has a few cafes open late, but the main advice is simply to avoid walking alone on the unlit stretches of road between the different beach zones at night.
Right.
This isn't necessarily because of a criminal threat hiding in the bushes, but because those roads are pitch black, narrow, and you don't want to get clipped by a passing motorbike.
That makes perfect sense. Now, there's one major structural safety limitation that we need to highlight, and it involves the medical infrastructure.
This is a critical warning. Pangkor only possesses very basic, clinic-level medical facilities. They are perfectly capable of handling a scraped knee from a motorbike fall or a mild fever.
But what if it's serious?
If you suffer a serious medical emergency, a cardiac event, a severe allergic reaction, or a major trauma, you require a ferry transfer back to the mainland to reach a fully equipped hospital in Lumut or Ipoh.
And if that emergency happens at 3 a.m. and the passenger ferries aren't running, or if there's a massive monsoon storm churning up the strait, you are stuck.
You are heavily delayed. This is a hard structural limitation for any traveler with a severe, unpredictable pre-existing condition, or for families traveling with very young, vulnerable infants. You have to factor that ferry dependency into your risk assessment before you book.
That is the kind of honest truth you need before you put down a credit card. So assuming you've managed the risks, navigated the traps, and budgeted properly, what is the ultimate emotional payoff? Let's talk about the genuine highs and the honest disappointments of this trip.
The highs are deeply rooted in that slow, unpretentious charm. It is the simple joy of sitting at a plastic table, feet in the sand, eating an incredible, fresh village seafood dish for $4.40 USD while watching the boats bob in the water.
For me, the high is finding yourself on the sand at Coral Bay on a Tuesday morning. It's totally quiet, you've rented a kayak for $7 an hour, and you are just paddling on completely calm water with the jungle behind you.
It is also the cultural footprint. Taking that $27 2-hour island loop in a pink van and actually exploring the island's history.
Yeah, that tour sounds great.
You can walk through the ruins of the 17th century Dutch fort, wander through the intricate Phu Linkong and Kaliaman temples, and visit the working fishing villages where families are laying out fish crackers and setae fish to dry in the sun. It feels like a lived-in, authentic place.
And I have to mention the hornbills. Every evening near Teluk Nipah, right at dusk, these massive, majestic, wild hornbills swoop down from the jungle canopy to feed. It feels like absolute magic. It's completely free to watch, and photos just do not do it justice.
But an audit requires honesty, which means we have to lay out the genuine disappointments alongside those highs.
Bring on the reality check.
The most common disappointment is the water quality. Because of the geology of the Strait of Malacca and the commercial shipping lanes we discussed, the water is hazy green.
Right. No Bora Bora here.
Because of this poor visibility, the snorkeling trips, which locals will heavily push on you for $15 to $25 USD, are often very poor value. You are staring at murky water.
And we keep harping on it. But arriving at Pasir Bogak at high tide to find your beautiful beach is just a concrete seawall, is a massive letdown.
The final disappointment is the environmental reality of the holiday weekend crush. The volume of domestic tourists that flood the island during peak holidays overwhelms the local sanitation infrastructure.
It gets dirty.
The litter that accumulates on the popular strips during those weekends entirely shatters the marketed illusion of a serene tropical escape.
It is the ultimate Instagram versus reality problem. I always point out that what those beautiful travel photos intentionally hide is the tide state and the crowd state.
Oh, absolutely.
You see a gorgeous, serene sunset shot of a completely empty coral bay on social media, and you think, that's what my Saturday afternoon will look like. But that photo was probably taken at 7 a.m. on a Wednesday before the day trippers from Ipoh even woke up.
Which is why matching your expectations to reality dictates your satisfaction here. If hazy green water, tidal flats, and the potential for weekend crowds sound like absolute deal breakers to you, we need to provide some viable alternatives within Malaysia.
Right. Where else should you look?
Let's look at alternative one, the Perhentian Islands. These are located on the exact opposite side of the country, on Malaysia's east coast.
Okay, so why compare them?
The Perhentians are the most direct competitor because they are Malaysia's other well-known budget island escape. When you look at the ground cost, the price of a basic chalet, the cost of a meal, they are broadly similar to Pangkor in terms of total USD spent.
So why would I choose the Perhentians over Pangkor?
You choose the Perhentians if your absolute top priority is postcard-perfect, crystal-clear turquoise water and high-quality snorkeling or scuba diving. The East Coast faces the open South China Sea, so it delivers that pristine visibility that the Strait of Malacca cannot.
Got it.
The Perhentians also have much more of a vibrant international backpacker and dive culture buzz.
But there are downsides.
Significant ones. Access is much harder. It requires a longer, more complicated overland journey to reach the East Coast ferry terminals from KL. There is no duty-free angle, so alcohol is noticeably more expensive.
And the weather.
That's the biggest downside, the seasonal weather mechanics. The Perhentians basically shut down entirely during the northeast monsoon from November to February. The seas become dangerous, the ferries stop running reliably, and many resorts just board up their windows.
Which is exactly when Pangkor is at its absolute best.
Yeah.
So they're seasonal opposites. If you want a beach trip in December, you go to Pangkor. If you want a beach trip in July, you go to the Perhentians. What about alternative 2?
Alternative 2 is Penang, which sits further north up the exact same west coast as Pangkor.
I love Penang, but it has a very different energy. Why are we comparing them?
Because it is the easiest pivot for a traveler looking at the west coast who decides they don't want to deal with a ferry. Penang has a massive logistical advantage. A real functioning international airport.
Oh, that's huge.
You can fly directly into Penang from Singapore or Bangkok and save an entire day of grueling overland bus travel.
Plus, Penang offers world-class, globally recognized street food in Georgetown, incredible heritage architecture, and a deep cultural scene.
Exactly. You go to Penang to eat, to explore architecture, and to absorb culture.
What's the downside?
The baseline costs are generally higher than Pangkor. It has a very busy, congested urban vibe rather than a slow island feel. And frankly, its main beaches like Batu Ferringhi are whicker and more commercialized than Pangkor's.
Okay, so Penang wins on culinary variety and flight logistics, but Pangkor wins on pure price, peace, and genuine small island isolation. Okay, it is time to bring all of this data, the geological facts, the logistical traps, and the budget math together for the final audit. It's time for the Is It Worth It matrix. We are going to run through the verdicts for every traveler type rapidly and clearly.
All right, let's do it.
I'll take the backpacker. For the backpacker, Pangkor is a strong buy. We give it an 8 out of 10. If you go midweek, it is absolutely worth it. You are burning $30 USD a day, securing a $20 guest house bed right near the beach. It remains one of the best value slow travel bases in the entire region.
For the mid-range traveler and couple, it is a 7 out of 10. It is worth it, with timing. If you are spending $80 to $110 USD a day for a $29 comfortable room, it is a fantastic 2 to 3 night reset, but you must actively manage your expectations regarding the watercolor, and you must avoid public holidays.
For the family, it's also a 7 out of 10, but the verdict is worth it carefully. At $200 to $260 USD a day for 4 people, it is a great financial deal. But you absolutely need to book a property with a swimming pool at Pasir Bogak to counter the high tide.
Very true.
It is an amazing value for local Malaysian families, but foreign families really need to weigh whether that long overland bus haul and the ferry-only medical access is the right choice for their kids.
For the luxury traveler, it is a 6 out of 10 for Pangkor itself. It is only worth it if you are specifically booking the $200 plus Pangkor Laut private island bubble, which, as we established, is an entirely separate experience from Pangkor proper.
Finally, for the digital nomad, it's a 7 out of 10. It's worth it for a 1-month deep focus retreat at $1,200 to $1,700 a month with a $400 to $700 rent. But it is not a connected tech hub. Do not go there if your livelihood depends on high-definition video calls.
So what is the overarching summary verdict? Book carefully. It is a resounding yes for budget, slow, midweek trips between December and February, but it is a hard, definitive skip if you require quick flights, pristine blue water, active nightlife, or if you are forced to travel on a peak public holiday.
It really is a destination defined by its constraints. And that leaves us with a final, provocative thought for you to mull over as you plan your next trip. Think about how a destination that is entirely shaped by domestic weekend tourism feels completely different from one built specifically for international travelers.
It's a completely different vibe.
It is. Pangkor retains its authentic, slightly unpolished, working-class charm precisely because it doesn't bend over backward to provide Western-style digital nomad infrastructure or massive luxury international airports. It knows exactly what it is, and it serves its local market first. As a foreign visitor, you are just a guest in their weekend rhythm. If this gave you the honest verdict you needed, follow the show. New episodes drop every day.
That is the honest verdict from Phil and H.